Now, let's dive back into the main topic of practicing. Recall, frugality is the intentional practice of prudent economy. We last week talked about how intentionality needs to involve writing down what you want to do so that you can clearly define what isn't done on a whim and what is done intentionally. We talked about how this lives in your budget. This is the whole idea of why having a budget can change your life, even if you are very frugal and you don't spend money. Having a budget is going to give you more control, and it's going to allow you to feel more free and more intentional than you ever have before with money. The thing is, if you write it down, if you write a budget, and you do it every month, you put pencil to paper, and then you set it aside, you put it in a drawer, you forget about it, and you go do whatever. Well, you're not putting your intentional plan into practice. It's the same thing as writing a shopping list down and then putting the shopping list in the drawer and going to the store saying, oh, I'll remember it. I'm going to remember what I put on my shopping list, and I'll stick to it. It'll be fine. It's okay. I don't have to write that down. I'll remember. That's the greatest lie any student has ever said in a classroom. So I don't have to write that down. And I don't know anyone who would forget on purpose their shopping list when they go shopping, if they make a shopping list. So why would we do that with our budget? Why would we write a budget and then forget about it, set it aside, not check on it, not keep it up to date? If you want to be practicing your budget, you need to be checking on it at least every weekend throughout the month, just to put in what you've spent so far, see what you have left to spend, and check if you have overspent on any category. Before you go out and you make major purchases, this includes grocery trips. Before you go out and spend money that you've budgeted for, be sure that you reference the budget and see how much do I have in here to spend. This isn't looking at your bank account and going, oh, I have money in there. This isn't looking at your credit limit on your credit card and saying, oh, I still have some credit. This is checking your plan, not what's necessarily available to you on the whole. But if you broke down every dollar into a category, if you did a zero-based budget, then you need to be referencing your plan for how you're going to go and spend that money. You need to be doing this in order to put what you have on paper into practice. And I know that this is hard. I know that this is challenging. And that's why we also need to practice in the sense of repeating the budget. It takes about 3 months of practicing a budget before the budget really starts to click, before what you're putting on paper starts to really reflect your behavior in reality. If we want to be successful, we need to be able to persist through failures. We need to be able to persist through missing that first strike so that we can get the rest of them and do the best that we can and achieve a level of success that we didn't know was possible before we started budgeting. Again, it takes about 3 months of repetitive practice before budgeting starts to really click. And even after that, we need to be persistent in our practice of it. When I was in college, I knew it was important to write a budget. I remember my freshman year writing monthly budgets for probably the first 2 months of the academic year. And then it sort of just fell by the wayside. I wasn't making a lot of money. I wasn't spending a lot of money. I was a broke college kid. I felt like it was more important for me to be putting my time into studying. What I found, though, is any month that I stopped writing the budget or I said, I'm just not going to spend money if it's not needed, I almost always spent double of what I did when I was on the budget. And I always felt more stressed when I wasn't practicing my budget. After having started it, if I didn't write it and I didn't have a plan and I just went into the month without my mission, without my zero-based budget, I would find myself telling myself, I deserve this, and then buying it. Or, I've been pretty good, I haven't spent on these things, I guess I can make this work. Or checking my checking account and going off of, okay, do I still have money in order to buy this thing? If I'm checking my checking account and asking myself, do I still have enough in order to pay for a want, I'm doing it wrong. I need to be more intentional than that. And that intentionality is going to give me freedom and I need to actually practice that. Ever since I got engaged, and ever since I've been married for the past 3+ years, my wife and I have done a monthly budget without fail before the month begins, and it has been spectacular. We have not had any significant major question of, are we going to be able to afford this in the middle of the month? Because we've already planned it out on paper. We have gone through temptations where there's something that looks bright and shiny and exciting that I might want to jump and buy. But because we didn't put it into the budget that month, because it was a want that could have compromised some of our needs, it was so much better to be able to say no to it then. And no, when you're practicing a budget doesn't mean never. No, when you're practicing a budget means not yet. And the question you get to answer by budgeting and putting your budget into practice every month is answering when. The budget, intentionality, and practice frugality on the whole means that you get to achieve the things that you genuinely want, the things that bring you the most joy, the most utility. All you have to do is tell yourself when. You get to control when you're in control of your money, when you're in control of practice, when you're in control of your intentions. When we're running a budget, when we're practicing our budget, it's important to know how we did last month. It's important to reconcile how well we did, how frugal we were that month prior. It's important as we practice anything to recognize our mistakes. Back when I was into bowling, you had to be focused. It was as much a mental game as it was a physical game. I'm a very type A personality. I would try really, really hard. And if I got too much inside my head when I was bowling, it would translate into me white-knuckling the ball. I'd be squeezing so hard that I would lose the control that I was trying to impose into the practice of bowling. My coach told me, he pulled me aside once when I was in bowling league and was like, Jay, I need you to relax. I need you to be able to go through the motions so that you can bowl better, so you can practice better. I need you to relax. My answer was, I'm trying really hard. And it was somewhat a self-fulfilling prophecy. The harder I tried to force the outcome, the harder it became to practice. The more that I became so intense that it was overwhelming and I'd get inside my head and I'd feel like I couldn't do it no matter how hard I tried, the harder it actually became, the more I became a self-fulfilling prophecy in that regard. Looking back on that moment of not being able to relax, I've been able to learn from that mistake. I've been able to breathe and find that positive place in the mental game when I'm bowling. And the same is true when you're practicing your budget. If you go through a month, you try really hard, it's frustrating, and you can't seem to get a grip, even though your level of control that you're putting into this thing is so intense, and you feel like you're failing. You need to be able to look back at what went wrong and learn from it. Practice allows us to learn from our past mistakes when we didn't do as well as we wanted to, when we didn't achieve what we wanted to do intentionally, when we couldn't put that fully into practice, when we overspend on that category by a little bit, or when something popped up and you didn't handle it the way that you wanted to in your budget. When you look back and you say, I could have done this better. How? You get to learn how, and then you get to practice that the next month. That's how we get better and better. That's how we go from averaging 120 to averaging over 200 in the game of budgeting. I really hope that today helped put some perspective into applying your budget, putting what you've done intentionally on paper into practice, and learning in an emotional way, internalizing frugality in that manner. Next week, we're going to talk about the third facet, Remember, frugality is the intentional practice of prudent economy. So next week, we're going to talk about the prudence aspect of personal finance, of budgeting, of your hope-filled financial future. Until then, budget bravely and enjoy your hope-filled financial future.